Him in a little bit. So hello, very nice to be here. It's nice to have the opportunity to have this conversation. There is a lot of interesting things going on. You've sent in a lot of questions that are very interesting that we want to talk about. So the normal is not coming back. That's the point that we're making here. The normal is not coming back. In real terms, I'm rooting for you, hoping that none of you are normal to start with. Heaven forbid that you would be normal. Normal is that place where you homogeneously don't have any edges, you fit in, you're in a nice little box, you're comfortable, theoretically, and there's nothing different about you. So I'm really rooting for you not to be that person. So before we start to kind of answer some of these questions that you've asked, some of these questions, the questions are really good. A lot of these questions are, should I wear a mask or shouldn't I wear a mask? So what I'd like to do is put this in a perspective to start that allows for a different or an alternate or an opinion, a point of reference to start to view how we actually see and why we see things in right or wrong, good or bad, should or shouldn't. So before we start, let me define for you what the third dimension is, just to kind of get this going. The third dimension, let's call it a box. And in that box, there are rules and structures. Fourth dimension, fifth dimension, rules and structures, but those are different. But for simple terms, in this box, there are a couple fundamental aspects of the game. One of the primary ones is linear time. So if you ask people on the street, is there anything different? Is there any other choice but linear time? Past, present, future, you die. 100 people on the street are going to look at you like you're crazy. And time is time, and it's fixed, and that's all there is. But as many of you are starting to understand, that's not quite correct. There is numbers of variations of time. In this third dimensional box, the third dimensional is conditional. There is nothing in the third dimensional box that is unconditional. That begins in the fourth and fifth dimensions. And you play there simultaneously. But in that third dimensional box too, there is duality. In this duality, there's right and wrong and good and bad and should and shouldn't. And that duality has structured how we make a lot of our choices. And in this third dimensional box, there is this individual freedom. You have the freedom to choose. And we wind up choosing. But one of the things that hasn't really matured in that box is kind of group consensus about a direction that we all want to go. There really is no group consensus. And because we have individual freedom, and because this has been a very abundant period of time in the last 60, 80 years particularly, we just simply assume that we can go about our business and do whatever we want. And we have. One of the challenges with that is that as we went along and did whatever we wanted, we really didn't take responsibility for a collective consciousness, kind of a group direction. Now, I'm really not talking about communism and authority that says this is how you'll do it, nor am I talking about such individual freedom to just go do whatever I want and that's how it is. Both of those things exist, duality, and at the same time, however, that consensus for a direction has really not been established. So in all of the abundance that we've had a level of basically creating whatever we want. Now, there's been inequities and there's been injustices and all of those things. But when you really take a look at it, and you take a look at some of the systems, education, justice system, international financial system, even social media, we have the right to do and say and create pretty much however we wanted. But what was not in the system that we've just gone through is a sense of maintenance of the system. And so consequently, when you begin to look at things like education, justice system, financial systems, what you've got is a very broken system, a system that is failing significantly. And in a lot of ways, it's really a pretty good thing, because simultaneously the shift of consciousness is happening. We're moving out of that 3D reality into a fifth dimensional reality. Let's just call that a group consensus about a format that we all want to maintain and move forward in. One that creates a balance, that allows people to have that individual freedom and creation and excitement, but also pays attention to the person that lives next door. A management of a system that is such that it doesn't get so far out of balance. Remember when you were a kid, you used to play with tops. I used to love playing with tops. And you push down on the little pedestal of the top, and the top begins to spin. And I used to be really fascinated by seeing if I could create it to the point where when it just stopped, the top just fell over. But in reality, there was always a point that was out of balance. Somewhere in the circle, there was a little anomaly, a little weight, something out of balance. So you push the top, and the more spin you get, the more motion you get, the more stability it appears to have. But then it starts to slow down and it begins to wobble. That's where we are. We're in the wobble. And the wobble, if it's not paid attention to, it's just going to crash. So how do we manage this transition from this third dimension, right, wrong, good, bad? My opinion is the truth. I have the right to argue my position, push against your position. But without taking a position, things like, do I wear a mask or don't I wear a mask? When you can step back out of the push and shove of that argument, my individual rights, really it's kind of like a whole lot of people are dying, and is there something that we can do in that process? Now, no opinion on my part. So how do you navigate, how do you choose to move through this transition? Because one thing is really clear, all of these structures are broken and they need maintenance. Just like the freeways and all of the infrastructure in the world, when you really take a look at it, no maintenance. Bridges just simply collapsing, no maintenance. So how do you begin to participate in a space where we navigate on our own behalf, but also pay attention to this created common good? And a lot of that is this transition that you and I are playing in right here, this ability to simply step into this fifth dimensional reality without holding an opinion of good and bad about the third dimensional reality. How do you step into it and begin to create a consensus of direction, not in terms of rules, but in terms of foundation? Just like that park bench project that many of you were playing in, park bench project basically is setting the landscape, the environment, the architecture of a realm of the fifth dimension, respect, love, gratitude. See, if that's the grass that you're standing on, then how people play out from that foundation basically turns out pretty good. So for this purpose where we're playing right here, let me see if I can answer questions from the standpoint of how do we step into an ability to observe and choose a direction that allows for well-being and stay out of the right and wrong and good and bad duality, which is just simply playing in the third dimensional game. So from that point of view, let me turn this over to Roxanne, because she's got all the questions, and let's see if I can make sense of some of your questions from the standpoint of not playing in the third dimension and creating a format to choose in a manner that supports you. So, Roxanne.
Hi, everybody. Roxanne here.
Do they see you?
I'm waving.
I'm looking at her over there. She's going, hey. All right.
We have people from all over the world, which is really cool. I like when you join us and you say, "Hello, I'm from Amsterdam. Hello, I'm from Sonoma County." It's just very cool that we have so many people from all over the world with us today. So before I ask questions, I just want to let you know that we are recording this. Of course, this is Facebook Live, and in the next couple days, I'm going to post it both on YouTube and on the MA site for you to have the recording. We also, Jim and I don't give health or financial advice, and we like to avoid things like ETs or conspiracy theories. We just don't go there. And I'm also going to give priority to people who ask questions who are actually attending, although I have 4 pages of questions that people sent. So it'll be a mix of both. So Jim, let's see. This first question is from Marianne. How can we get prepared for this new normal, like on daily basic things?
So the simple answer is, how do you want to be prepared? What is it that you want to do? If you can step into a realm of consciousness where you are able to manage the direction, choose an outcome, observe, choose an action, how do you wish to experience that? Do you wish to experience it from fighting for it, or hoping for it, or struggling, word we're going to talk about during this conversation? Or do you basically wish to set in motion that state of ease and well-being and being able to find that center point of the sphere, which we talk about quite a bit, and be able to recognize that in this new space that we're stepping into, from that place of conscious present time observation, everything comes to you. You don't have to go find it. You don't have to argue for your position. Everything comes to you. So the question is, how do you wish to begin to experience that? Now I'm getting a funny message on my screen here, so...
I got the same thing.
Yeah, okay, I'll let you do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really, how do you choose? And I'm going to say that often during this whole session. How do you choose? See, you really have permission to choose. That's one of the things that's necessary, I believe, to start to recognize. Permission isn't something, as you've experienced it growing up, it's given to you. I give you permission to go out today. You have permission to choose. You have permission that allows you to navigate on your terms. But that's not how the third dimension game has been played to date. But stepping out of this good, bad, right, wrong space, beginning to recognize that you have the capacity, the permission to choose on your terms, and then draw to you what is that you are interested in. It's going to become more and more obvious, more aware. There's going to be more of an awareness in that fact as we go forward, because as we've said, and I'll talk about, I'm sure, during this reset, this transition, we're no longer in a shift. Someday this shift is coming. It has happened. We're in the transition, moving now. The reset is in place. And the rules of this new reset are very different than the rules of good and bad. So I hope that helps.
Jim, this is just a comment from Erin. I'm actually finding this to be a very magical time, despite being a nurse on a COVID unit. And I'm so grateful for all the tools and Mastering Alchemy coursework. I feel like the chaos is redirecting me to become more focused on the work, and that in turn is really helping me understand what it means to, quote, know myself and choose what I want in life. I feel so blessed to be part of this work. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Happy for you.
And then here's a question from someone on Instagram. What will have to be transformed or collapsed for the new normal to reach the new stepping stone to the 4th and 5th dimensions? And how do we achieve it?
Well, it's very much what I just said. So we're in transition. We are moving from this third dimensional reality to this kind of multi-dimensional, dimensional reality. And let's just call fifth dimension well-being for simplicity purposes. So it's really about, what do you want? How do you choose? A lot of the tools in mastering alchemy, the rows and the words particularly, how do you build a platform that you start to feel more comfortable navigating your own direction from certain, capable, seniority, happy, gracious? What have you lived in those words? And then the rows defining, this is me, and that's Shakespeare's theater on the other side. When you begin to have those two actions in place, you find that you start to see the world very differently and choose very differently. And how do you wish to choose? What is it that you wish to want? And that's the direction this is all going.
Jim, this one is also, this one is from Dorothy. As the changes are occurring on Earth, will the moving sidewalk to higher vibrations be easy for those who are not yet awakened, or will the divide widen between these?
So my reference to this moving sidewalk, which a lot of you have heard, some of you haven't, is basically this reset has occurred. So it's like there's a Y on the road, and you're now in the motion. You're on the direction that's going towards this fifth dimensional reality. There are a lot of people who are not on this road yet, and they're not going to be on this road for a long time. It's just the reality of kind of how we're playing. People playing in the third dimension, particularly right now, where you have injustice, as an example, beginning to be brought to the surface to be actually dealt with in a manner that it hasn't been before. You've got major economic injustices, inequities in that place that are really going to start to fall out. There's going to be significant changes in the third dimensional reality from that standpoint. So you have a lot of off balance that's going to be experienced over the coming period of time. And when somebody's in survival, I don't have enough, I don't know how to navigate, I'm depending on my past normal to become my again normal so I can get back to where I was, that's not going to happen. And so how do you navigate begins to be the question. And when that desire for status quo continues, there's an off balances. And all of these pieces that are falling into place, coronavirus, the economic circumstances, climate change has been pushed to the back of the table for the moment, at the same time where the Arctic is on fire at temperatures in excess of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So you've got all these imbalances that are happening for people playing in the third dimension that aren't sitting here where you are, as an example, or starting to be. The ability to start to say, my personal spiritual alignment is not even in their field of awareness. So it's really, in a lot of ways, up to those that are beginning to navigate into this fifth dimensional world, where a lot of us are playing here. It's beginning to create that platform that allows others to find a stable, comfortable place to begin to choose engaging in their life differently. And that's what we're all faced with right now. How do you choose to step off the railroad track as you're seeing the train coming, versus going, oh my God, and then getting hit by the train? How do you choose? And I'm going to say that over and over today. How do you choose? And they eventually will make it over there as many begin to set that template in place of well-being and begin to bring a lot of change into that third dimensional perspective. As you begin to see over the next 10 years, the financial system is going to completely change. I mean, that's hard to believe, but it's going to change. Education is already changing. It's just, look at, colleges are shut down, high schools, grammar schools are shut down, moving towards a computerized educational system. So you're seeing big sweeping changes. They're not going to go away, and everybody is going to wind up adapting to these new changes. Many of these changes will be for the well-being.
Jim, this one is from Elsie, who's here with us online. Is it possible to make choices in 5D when there's no duality there?
So let's look at this. So when you get into present time, when you basically have the ability to choose a reality that you wish, you have choice in terms of, is it vanilla ice cream, is it chocolate? Rather than looking at that as a duality, look at it as a range of choices that are available to you to choose from. And as we begin to play in that space, the ability to look at something, let me deviate back to people who are, actually, let me not go there. These spaces begin to be choices you have available, simply not rights and wrongs. And many of the choices that become available in the past would have been, oh, I can't do that, or that's a stupid choice, or that's simply not something that makes any sense at all. But when you start to step back out of this right, wrong, good, bad, pushing against, and take a breath and just start to say, I have this circumstance, and what I believe is not altering the circumstance or bringing it into a different reality. What else might be available? And instead of throwing rocks at the other guy's opinion, just simply see if that opinion has really any value to it. One of the challenges that's going on right now is, if you really look at a whole lot of these decisions that are being made, or people's positions, if you really step back and look at them, there is a reasonableness to both positions. Except this position can't see from this position the reasonableness here, and vice versa. But if you can step out of it and just simply say, what I'm really wanting to do is change the circumstance for well-being, how is what they're saying have any value? Because obviously they're arguing as strenuously as this person is arguing strenuously. But if we can both step back and say, all right, that's where we want to get, not whether I'm right or you're right. How do we get there? You're going to start to find that there are a whole bunch of other alternatives that have come forth but haven't been looked at because we're being too busy arguing my position against your position. And so this space of moving into alternate choice, how do you choose differently than what's on the table from your perspective? You're going to find some really remarkable experiences becoming available to us.
Jim, this one's from Laura. No matter how skilled I become at creating my dream life in the fifth dimension, I'm never going to be happy while watching my loved ones suffer in the third. Shouldn't I be able to create health and happiness for them also because they're part of my dream reality?
So as long as you choose not to be in your dream reality because they aren't in your dream reality, you will not be in your dream reality. I'm conditioning my dream reality on their well-being, of which I have very little influence over their well-being because they are choosing their lifetime and their format for themselves. So, but what you do have opportunity over is to simply begin to create your dream reality. Now, this is where this consensus begins to have foundation. So I know if I can begin to be happy, if I can begin to have for myself, I mean, like create and have wealth, have material, have prosperity, then I have the capacity to freely give a portion of that away. But if I stay in a place where I'm commiserating where nobody has anything, then I'm staying in the space where nobody has anything. But when you can begin to hold a place that is in love and is in beauty and is in well-being and happiness and a sense of certainty and an awareness of how you are holding that space, it becomes very magnetic to where people who are like you begin to start to say, how are you doing this? You look happy. You're having a good time. What are you doing? you also have the capacity from that place to hold such a vibration that they have a place to go to. They begin to see an opportunity. But when everybody is simply in, oh, I can't do anything until they do something, I can't have my dream until they have their dream, nobody has their dream.
Let's see, Jim, this one is from Yvonne. Is the world that we see the world that we choose? Interesting.
In simpleness, yes, absolutely. So if you can only see through this set of filters, and that's how you perceive the reality. You know, we've talked often about the law of attraction that simply says, I adore you, and I will give to you what you hold your attention on. And so, to a great extent, as long as we stay in the perspective of this is how it is, this is what we get. So, this space where we're talking about beginning to create a platform that allows you to feel vibrations like well-being, just sitting in your chair, I'm going to choose to be happy. I'm not going to condition it upon the third dimension or what they think. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch a comedian and laugh because I like to laugh. I'm going to give to myself happiness. How do you feel in happiness? It's not a fleeting moment. I'm going to go entertain myself. That's happiness. But it goes away when the comedian goes away. What if you could simply say, I'm going to start to understand this feeling of happiness and then choose happiness to go walk around my block. And then I'm going to see if I can just be happy walking around the block. All of a sudden you find in that space of happiness, I'm noticing flowers that I didn't notice. Gee, there's a sunset that's really quite attractive. That's a nice cat that's over there, sitting there, licking itself. I'm happy. In that space, the filter shifts and the ability to begin to see and choose differently becomes available. But going back to my opening statement of 3D, 3D is conditional and it's around dualities, and it's also conditioned on I need them to like me, approve of me, give me their permission to be okay. In that space of normal, combined with the rational mind's job is to keep you safe and have you fit in. Normal. It simply doesn't want you to be hurt or upset or off balance. So safety meaning, okay, I'm going to keep you help you stay in a space to where nobody gets upset with you. You know that place? That's normal. And so if you can begin to start to look at how would I like to experience myself, the filter begins to shift, and what's seen through the filter begins to be very different than words like struggle or survival or not enough, lack. In that case, conditioning begins to take hold, and I'm a function of the condition. I'm not a function of my own ability to create.
Jim, I have probably half a dozen people here asking a similar question about 3D and fear and anger and masks and vaccines and that whole package. So yeah. I'm not quite sure what I'm asking here.
I'll just go through them. Let's see if we can make some sense.
Okay, well, here's a couple. Why are people so fearful and compliant? Can you explain? Do I accept other people's fear based on the new structure of reality? Let's see. What is behind all the anger I see around me? Is it fear, confusion about vaccines and masks? 3D stuff.
So this is why I set this up at the beginning. So this 3D world is all about everybody fitting in a manner of speaking. But it doesn't require responsibility or participation in creating a consensus about how would we all like to live. Again, not communism and not pure, you're on your own, do whatever you want kind of situation. But what is it that I would feel comfortable with, I would enjoy, I would be able to strive for well-being, I would be able to laugh, I would be able to walk around without fearing who's going to walk around the corner and potentially get me. I'm in a place where things like false news don't really even exist because we're all in agreement for well-being, not only for ourselves, but for others. See, when you start to get into that perspective, this co-creation, this cooperation, words like respect and dignity and integrity and the ability to nurture and uplift others becomes the framework. And if I said, anybody want to vote for that? Probably everybody listening would say, that's what I want. And all the people in 3D would say, that's what I want. But that's not what you get, because the structure doesn't work that way. You know, one of the things in 3D, and let me just take democracy. We take that word and we all have a sense of what that means, but basically it means freedom and the rights to do things and the ability to have all those great experiences of cooperation and co-creation. But do you have it? If you really kind of look at the fundamental piece of this concept of democracy, one of the pieces is we give others the right to kind of oversee and manage the collective good. But one of the really craziest things that happen in the democracy is this concept of majority rule. Well, we'll all go out and vote, and the person that we vote for will rule. And it's a majority rule, and so we kind of go and vote for people. But that's not how it works in real terms. You get a bunch of people over here, let's take the United States in a two-party system, and a bunch of people that believe this over here, and a bunch of people that believe that over here. And then what we do is, in that grouping, there may be 20 different topics, climate change and Black Lives Matter and et cetera, over here. But they're also over here. But I've got two different opinions about both of those kind of things. And so we're going to vote for the candidate who's going to bring us balance, bring us justice, bring us co-creation. But what happens is when you go to vote, there's 5 people over here in this grouping. They all have different opinions about how to go about that. So really what we wind up voting for is we vote for the best of the worst. I don't like these 4 guys. In fact, I don't like all those guys, but I like this one more than I like the other 4. That's exactly how Donald Trump got elected, not taking a position, good or bad. 13% of the vote in the Republican Party voted for Donald Trump. So he became the guy. And now he becomes the guy who doesn't like this guy. And so now you got everybody going, give me the better of the 2. But what happened to climate change? What happened to educational reform? What happened to all the things that I have value about? Got lost in the us and them. See, that's the other part of third dimension. Us and them. Good and bad, right and wrong. So what happens is we're going forward in a system that simply has people that are battling one another and taking no responsibility for that bridge that needs some maintenance over there. It's going to break, but we'll send it to committee to study. That's not a rational formatting for moving forward in collective well-being. And so you're watching this all begin to break. The hope is that somewhere before the top really spins out of control, that there's enough of us that simply say, wait a minute, is it possible to create co-creation? Is it possible that you and I can sit down and talk about the bridge that's going to fall down rather than your red tie or my blue tie, or you speak this and I speak that? So this third dimensional game is that top that's really about to spin out of control. Rather than trying to prop up just that game, what if we began to play the other game that's available but has not been chosen, but now is very available? This fifth dimensional framework of well-being. beginning to create the framework of well-being. I respect you. Respect. That was that fundamental word in Park Bench Project. Respect. From respect, I get to have conversation with you, even though I don't quite agree with you. And then let's figure out how we can make your position and my position rather than this. How do we take it to the higher road? How do we make 1 and 1 3? Create a new answer to this process. That's the shift that we're in right now. And it's very much the shift you're in. So the question to you all is, how do you choose? Do you just keep going along without choosing some aspect of responsibility? And in this case, how do I become capable, certain? How do I become strong? How do I begin to stay on my side of the road? How do I begin to create a vibrational frequency that simply ripples out well-being to the masses? So those that can't quite see yet begin to feel an opportunity rather than a state of struggle. So third dimension, fifth dimension, we're right at the division point. It's already occurred. The boat's left the dock, but it's got a couple of directions that it's going simultaneously. I hope that makes some sense.
Jim, this question is from someone who just joined level 2 in May, and he's having the experience of, I'll just read this. I have the impression people actually don't see me nor hear me. Not like they have a different opinion. I think they physically don't see me or hear me. So could you talk about being invisible?
So this is something that begins to happen. You, in a lot of ways, are becoming, are going to, in a much greater manner, become invisible to the right, wrong, good, bad, should, shouldn't, duality, me versus them. You're going to become invisible. So you start getting into a place where I like me, I'm enjoying me, I'm happy, I feel comfortable, I'm beginning to have a sense of purpose, I'm feeling passion about the opportunity to make a difference. And in that space of managing your space, you move into present time. But that third dimensional world, right, wrong, good, bad, is very engaged in, well, this happened in the past and we can't let it happen in our future, and this is bad and this is good. And in that space, the top is beginning to start to really become wobbly, and you're standing there nice and quiet, beginning to have a sense of yourself. I'm going to use the word selfish. You are selfishly beginning to have a sense of yourself. But in that place of being selfish, you're starting to have the capacity to have for yourself. And it's in that place the ability to give to others begins to be available. But when it's selfish from the standpoint of third dimension, step on people, take advantage, use them to get ahead, that's not the selfish that we're talking about over here. This is one that says, I can begin to navigate, I can begin to suggest, I can begin to hold a level of light in my space. I can begin to co-create with others and enjoy myself rather than hating the work that I do, because I'm always in battle with the authority or the co-workers. So this space where you're becoming invisible is really common to an awful lot of you that play in Mastering Alchemy. And you're going to start to find something else that goes along with this. I'm losing my reference points. Well, this is how it should be, and all of a sudden, well, it's not even important to me anymore, and pretty soon it's not in your awareness anymore. And so you start to lose your need to engage or get their approval for you to be who you are. That's falling away, and it's going to continue to fall away. And there's a little bit of an awkwardness in that falling away, because you say, gee, I kind of lost all my reference points, and it appears that nothing is replacing them. That's not quite correct. There is a lot replacing them, but it's replacing them in this space where you begin to give yourself permission to have for yourself to create what it is that you really want to begin to create. And then it begins to be a co-creative, cooperative creation. And that's the path into that fifth dimension that we're playing.
Jim, this one is from Lauren, who's with us today online. Lauren is having trouble with lack. They say that they've been unemployed for 2 months and the income isn't coming in from places that they expected it should be. And Lauren says, I'm picturing what I can accomplish instead of focusing on it not being there. Is it just a it will happen when it should thing?
This is a challenge because when it's right now in my face, it is right now in my face. And it's not a wishing it to go away. It is what it is. So the place that is challenging, completely set it in that place, is this is, you hear me say a lot in Mastering Alchemy, I'm fine, I'm not my problem. What we do when this situation becomes the circumstance we are experiencing, we become the problem. It's like, yeah, I have a problem. Well, you're fine, and I have a problem. If you can create the space to simply go, okay, I'm all right, what do I do about this? There's room to begin to do something. But when I'm the problem, this is the problem, I can't figure this out, I have a problem. When it's that locked together, there's not a lot of room to begin to navigate, how do I get out of this? In present time, it's real. It's not going away in this minute because it's sitting on the dinner plate, unfortunately, in real terms. So, okay, how do I take where I am right now? And I need to make some real adjustments a month out, 3 months out, 6 months out. What does that look like? If you begin to look at how do I move around what's staring me right in the face in the moment, not denying it, just simply going, I need to take a breath and step back. All right, what do I do? There begins to be choices, but we are very much right in the place where the maintenance hasn't been applied and the bridge just broke. It didn't collapse all the way, but it broke enough to where trying to drive across the bridge in the normal morning traffic is not available as it was just a short period of time ago. So the key to that, and I can't give you any more than this, is really that little bit of space, breath, sit down, find yourself. I'm okay. I have challenge, but I'm not my problem. And it gives you room to start to look at it and then navigate out of it.
Jim, this one is from Michelle, who's also online with us today. My children and friends want to fight for the injustice in the world. I choose to stay in peace. I've been told I'm wrong. The peace brings nothing, only hate speech and violence will work to get changes. This is tearing apart my family. What can I do to keep sane? She's in level 1.
So there's the battle of push and shove and right and wrong and good and bad. Now again, that's third dimension. That's the structure of the third dimension. It's not an opinion that this is good or bad in itself. It is what it is. That battle is how we have learned to live our lives in right and wrong. The space that I watch a lot of people playing in Mastering Alchemy take, especially as you start to have that platform of well-being, being, starting to have that I'm okay and I have a problem. I'm just going to simply deal with it from I'm okay. Now, how do we deal with this? The reality is those injustices do absolutely exist. They're right here in your face. The level of the shift, the reset, has one of the primary things that's happened in the reset. It is now amplifying all of the injustices, all of the non-maintenance of the circumstances that brought us to this place. They are broken. That's just simply how it is. It's not going to be wished away. It's the place of creating a state of well-being, like watching Black Lives Matter. The massive predominance of that was people peacefully simply saying enough. I remember that really well in the late 60s, and when Nixon went into Cambodia, and it was just like this light bulb turned on in millions of people, and they went out into the street and said this is enough. And then 4 kids got shot at Kent State. It was like, this is not even a possibility of reality, and yet There it was, right in your face. Right now, that shifting change is very conscious in terms of making changes. My simple consideration about how do you vote for people that can begin to co-create together and create together has to come about almost first at these very high national levels, state levels, local government levels, because as long as the authority is in the battle of who wins, the populace gets nothing in the past. But what does happen is nothing happens, then you actually get that level you're talking about here that says, go to the streets. And some people go to the streets and believe destroying something is the answer, which only aggravates the situation that much more. So how do you begin to hold your space? And how do you begin to say, I get what you're saying, family. I get it. How do you find an answer that doesn't destroy something, that really forces everybody to step up? And if you look at this racism in the United States and around the world, I mean, you got to be absolutely amazed that all of a sudden places like Minneapolis, who have a terrible police record, have just voted to disband their police services. Now, I think the media is using the word disband, where I think the information was, let's unravel this and put it back together. But they're not talking about taking all their policemen off the streets. So there needs to be some discussion and rational understanding. Okay, how do we take this to the next level that allows us to go to the next level? So from all of you, how do I begin to create a balance point to where that discussion begins to go 1 and 1 is 3? How do I take things to the high road? How do I initiate, even among my own family, a place to where, you know, this hard position is not opposed to this hard position? That we basically say, okay, but if it was possible to do something different, how would it be different? And then see where the results go from there.
Jim, here's a question from Laura, who's also online. How do you handle people who are really losing it? Close people are just ranting and raving and losing it. It's hard to stay centered.
It's they are losing it does not mean you can't stay centered. And so now, if it's my husband, wife, it's my kid, my mother, my father, I mean, they're in your face. They're you know, the game of relationship is the toughest game on the planet, and the game of family is the toughest of the toughest game of the relationship. So when you have people who are really losing it, it's a matter of how do you step aside and allow their top to kind of spin to moving towards out of balance. It either crashes and then you say, okay, well, how do we work through this now? Or you step aside and basically allow them to kind of calm down and then say, all right, how is it possible we do something different? But the piece of it is your sanity, your stability. And so they are off balance, but I'm fine. And you hear that just as it's being said. It's not an avoidance, it's not a denial, it's simply a real clarity, a stepping back and grounding, becoming clear, center of my head, taking a breath. I'm in present time. I'm here. I'm okay. And I have stuff to deal with. That little bit of space between I'm the problem, I mean, I have a problem, becomes consuming. You can't find your space. But if you say, you know, I know you have a problem. I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm going to go just sit down for a minute. You're going to find that the ability to have more clarity begins to play out well here.
Jim, this one is from Christina, who's also online with us right now. Am I preventing my own ascension by staying informed and spending any of my attention on what's happening in the third dimension?
The third dimension is happening. So I'm going to say the same thing again. Is if you put your finger into that light socket called the third dimension, you are going to simply be anxious, irritated, nervous, angry, judgmental, reactionary. Third dimension. It's what you got. It's how it works. If I can basically recognize that's all going on, it's happening. It's not happening because of me. That's not where we're going. It's simply, all right, this is not good, and it's in present time. How do I step back? How do I get grounded? That's not an avoidance. That's not a denial. That's not oh, I don't care. I'm just going to, that doesn't exist over there. I'm not going to worry about it. It's none of that. It's going on. So how do I find my own stability so that where there is an opportunity to reach out, it's an enabling, it's assisting, it's uplifting, it's nurturing, it's being kind to somebody where you can kind of pull them out of the cold water. Or there's a place too that is another aspect of this, which isn't exactly the question, but similar. There are so many injustices, so many imbalances that the nervous system is absolutely overwhelmed in people's spaces. It's climate change, it's racism, it's judicial systems, it's financial systems, it's employment. All the systems are broken. So when you start to look, there's really not a very comfortable answer to how to fix this. So the choice is, can I just step back? If you really are passionate about fixing something, pick one that you can contribute to and you can impact. But I'm overwhelmed is simply a correct statement. I'm overwhelmed. This is way too much. Find the tools, get on your side of the rows, take a breath, begin to get grounded, start to recognize present time, and I'm observing, then choosing an action rather than shoot, ready, aim, and then have to apologize and back out of it and be uncomfortable. Find yourself in this space, and you're going to find the opportunity to navigate in a way that many surprise themselves. They didn't realize I have a choice of me and navigating in a way from being comfortable. So let me say it one more time, that you're in transition. This is not going back to some normal. It is not going back to where it was, and it's going to get more challenging going forward in the not too distant future. And so know that. Just simply treat that as for yourself at whatever level it is. This is the reality. Now, how do I wish to play this game that I came here to play from this position with the cards that have been dealt me right in front of me? It's not a, oh no, poor me. It's really like, okay, one last thing to that. The opportunity is astonishing. What is possible, what is coming in on these waves of light, the ability to begin to choose differently and step into opportunity is really, really becoming amazing. Not fully seen yet, but if you can get quiet into yourself and just start to ask the question, how would I like to experience myself? You're going to find some very interesting choices.
Jim, last Facebook Live last month, you talked a little bit about the elementals. And so I have a couple questions, but here's one question from Elise. What is the difference between the elements and the elementals?
So the elements are oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, sulfur, all of the elements, the chemicals of the earth, the air, the water, the fire, the chemicals, the particles that are in this physical reality, the particles, the dirt on the ground, the particles, the elements. The elementals are a consciousness that we put into somewhat of an illusion. We call it form. We in our mind, we give them shape. We give them, like flying birds, the sylph or the gnomes. We give them identity. That's what we do. But they're really consciousness. They're a conscious vibration that plays in both physical and non-physical. they have the capacity to alter, redirect, shift, create in terms of making things happen as they put them together. The relationship between humans and the elementals, there used to be no divide between the two. Then there was a divide, and now that divide has been significantly readjusted into well-being. But one of the purposes of the elementals was simply to not be the creator being, but be the partner to the creator being, you being the creator being. And basically, you come into form and you say, I wish to create. And in that place, you have an idea, you have a concept, you have a passion for. It's in that place that the elementals basically line up and then reflect back to you how the possibility of that creation happens, and also makes, no, that's not the right word, actually assists in aligning the opportunities to come about. If you start to think you wish to create beauty on the earth, the elementals will actually start to take that and transform it into a new flower, let's say. And then you stumble onto it and it's like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to create. There it is. It's because you did it. It's how it works. So engaging with the elementals, and we're going to do more of that. In fact, I'm about to send all of you playing in the park bench a video in the next really short period of time, because in the last park bench we played with the elementals, and we played with love, and we played with that vibrant pink light from the heart. In this next park bench, we're going to amplify that significantly in a way that is going to create something very new to happen. And so, if you're playing in park bench, you'll get that video. If you're not playing in park bench and you're interested, it's on the website. Roxanne will show you how to sign up for that and come and play. And right now we're approaching 5,000 people playing in that. So very exciting what you all are creating.
When I have a minute, what I'll do is I'll add the link to this chat here once I ask the next question. So let's see. Okay, so this question, sorry, I'm not organized here. There's just a lot coming in right now. This one's from Karen. Please explain how being in a state of well-being not only affects how we live in the world, but how this will also begin to change the physical reality we see and experience.
So one of the very fundamental changes that you're going to experience, and it's kind of the answer is, the sooner you get into present time, the sooner you get into grounded, certain, capable, however you go about doing that, Mastery Alchemy, some other program, we're talking about you beginning to be the authority of your space, being able to command your presence and create. So right now, that to a lot of people, it's like, well, that would be cool, but I don't know how to do that. As you begin to find that space, there is a fundamental shift that we've talked about for years in Mastering Alchemy that was taking place. It's now here engaged, and that space is a shift in concept. It's 3D, I have to go get their approval, I have to fit in, I hope they hire me, I hope I have the right credentials, I've done what they told me, now I'm waiting for them to approve of me. Not a lot of power in that space. But as you start to get to the place where, as we said a little while ago, your reference points begin to fall away, those reference points predominantly are engaged with them approving of and liking me. So as those reference points start to fall away, as I said a minute ago, one of the things that happens is I begin to not have any new reference points. I don't know what to do with myself. Some of you will even call it, I'm bored. In 3D, that would be the correct word. I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. But not here. Here, you're beginning to have a shift. It's as if you have an awareness but don't know what to do with it as yet. And that awareness is in that present time moment, in that state of well-being, in that state of I like myself, in that state of I think I'd like to have something happen. See, most people say, well, I don't know what to do. And now you're just going to sit there until you begin to decide, I would like to experience myself in joy. What would that look like? And begin to ask and create. As you start to form that configuration of how you wish to engage, the shift goes from them approving of me to me in the center of that sphere, center point of where everything comes to me. Now, you do that often actually, but you don't really put it in this categorization. But here it becomes intentional. And then you're going to start to have a success. You're going to go, wow, that was a coincidence. And then there'll be another coincidence and another and another and another. And pretty soon you realize this isn't a coincidence. I thought this and it happened. It's in that space that you're going to start to find the ability to set these vibrations of feelings into your place. We talk about it often. Feelings. I can feel certain, commanding of my presence. I feel really capable. I have this sense of passion, of strength, and this is what I want. It's in that space that you're going to start to find that those elementals, for example, are going to begin to reflect back to you. But in these new waves of light, the possibilities of creating this co-created conscious state of well-being is now becoming very, very simple and available. But I can't take my baggage with me. So those filters of I'm not okay, I don't deserve, if you're looking through those, this simple drawing to you this creation that you desire begins to have wobbles in it because there's that top spinning out of balance. It's that space where that top has no interference in the circle. I'm creating very specifically. You're going to start to find that what you want comes to you in a way that begins to make everything change, including this architecture that's being put in place for those that are in 3D to find their way into. The end.
The end. Sorry, this is like juggling.
I'm watching all these lines and people going, well, what about this and how come? So.
This one is from James, who's with us today, and James is also in level 2 or level 3, I don't remember which, and he says, in the A Course in Mastering Alchemy book, you mentioned that one may encounter difficulties in going up into the higher mind. Sometimes I have difficulty going up to the higher mind. What are some suggestions as to what to do to remove the barriers preventing one from going there?
Well, it sounds like a level 1 question, so to a great extent. So what happens is I know what I know, and I've spent all my life gathering what I know, and I've had success here and I've had failure there, so I begin to, based on my past and my future, navigate through certain filters that are safe, comfortable, acceptable, getting me to where I go. That process doesn't work the same way when you start to step into these spaces. So one of the places when you try to simply look at your life through these filters that you have had as experience, if you ask yourself, how do all my, begin to, let me do it this way. When you begin to get into present time, choose to get into present time, when you choose to be grounded, when you choose to be quiet, when you choose to pull your attention back behind your eyes and be able to take a breath and look through your eyes. That sounds funny, but we don't do that all the time. We kind of see, well, yeah, I see everything, but this is specific. I see, I'm looking. In that space, when you make that shift into the higher mind, which is really just a quiet breath, and it's almost like just take a breath and go up an inch and then back an inch and a half and observe from there. It's very much in the pineal center, but observe from there What happens? It gets quiet. There begins to be a focus. There's a curiosity. There's not a lot of movement. That's the higher mind. But in the history of the filters, there's the mom, dad, teacher, minister who said, this is how it works. This is how it doesn't work. Do this. Don't do that. Go to this school. Don't go to that school. Play with them. Don't play with them. Eat this food. Don't eat that food. Good, bad, right, wrong. And a lot of that sits right in the middle of your head. A lot of those do's and don'ts. And so when you start to get quiet, whether it's religion or whether it's the mom, dad, teacher, minister, or the teacher in school in third grade who climbed right into the middle of your head and told you how bad you were, all of a sudden you start to get quiet, there's that third grade teacher. Or there's that doubt, or there's that thought that I'm not good enough. And so as you continue to play in the Mastering Alchemy work, the tools begin to allow you to recognize, does this third grade teacher who told me I'm not okay and I'm not smart and I don't know anything about math, do I still need to carry that around? And if the answer is no, there's that rose tool, there's the fourth, fifth, sixth ray, there's the eighth ray, there's the color codes, all these tools that allow you to simply recognize this is not useful to me and remove it pretty instantly. Then the ability to try to sit and get quieter and comfortable and begin to experience that feeling of happy or certain or capable begins to be a clear, intentional experience that you're creating. And then the fascinating part of that intentional experience is certain, capable, seniority. You already are that. We've just moved away from it based on mom, dad, teacher, minister. So when you start to begin to get quiet and aligned, which is who you are, you start to have this sensation, these feelings, these awarenesses also of who you are. Strong, capable, certain, focused, happy, gracious, kind. That's who you are, but not in the third dimension, because they told me and they may not approve of me. And if I'm not a strong manager and I don't yell at my people that I manage, then I'm not a good manager. Well, who told you that? And more often than not, you can't remember who told you that. So that's the higher mind beginning to be conscious.
Jim, this one is from Carla, who's in level 1. In class, you said our rational mind is to keep us safe and help us to fit in. I laughed. I've tried all my life to fit in, and I never have.
Hey, congratulations.
I wonder how many of us feel that way. My sense of knowing tells me all feel that they don't fit in to some degree. Would love your comments.
Well, pretty much nobody came here to fit into the third dimension. We just kind of got into it and then became it. It just got all over us and we made an assumption that's what it is. And so I'll just follow the rules of the game. People who are playing here, and I'm going to venture to say every one of you on this call, don't fit in. It's like, I don't know why I'm on this planet. I don't know why I'm in this family. I'm not acceptable. And then what you do is you begin to withdraw. The reality of it is, it's not that you're not okay. It's that you're so okay, and you basically are bright. Look at these little ones, particularly ones today. But you were one of them. You were them once, and it's like your eyes are brilliant, and they're just totally enthralled with everything. And then it's like, no, don't do that, and we don't do that here, and that's not acceptable. And there's all that conditioning that sits in there. But what happens is it's that ability where those spiritual abilities, those psychic abilities are on, and you simply are watching something happen and you're hearing it in a whole different, it's like what I see and what I just heard are two different things. And then you begin to have people who, many of you grow up in a dysfunctional family and you get a lot of mixed messaging and you get told, what are you doing that for? And pretty soon all of your passion is being told it's not okay. And so you have this sensation, I don't belong here. I don't fit here. And to a great extent, on one hand, you are completely correct. On the other hand, you dove into this space to begin to recognize it, to figure out how to today make a difference. And so here, when you start to find you have permission, not given to you, you have it. You can allow yourself to enjoy yourself. If you close the door and sit back and just kind of take that intellectual word certainty, I'm going to be certain, and then turn it into a feeling and take a breath and feel what certain feels like in the body, that's you remembering you. That sense of strength, just simply beginning to recognize I'm the creator being. There's this whole presence inside you. And then what we do, we call that a meditation, and we go, oh, that was really good. Now I'm going to go back to work. And you take that costume off and you put the other costume on and go back until you come back and sit down. But this reset is something now when you sit down and you start to be in present time, you start to have a sense of yourself, you start to have a joy, you start to recognize there is possibility. It doesn't go away this time. It rises up and it may drop back a little bit, but it doesn't go back to here. And the next time it rises up and then it drops back a little bit and rises up and drops back. You are remembering yourself. This is who you are. Well-being, passion, enthusiasm, this vibrant pink light that we're going to talk about and crystallize into the body in the Park Bench Project. This is who I am. When you can start to make love physical, crystallizing love in the heart, all of a sudden you've got all these crystals running through the bloodstream that basically amplify the vibration of that which you are. Next Park Bench Project. So, hope that helps.
Jim, here's a comment from Vicky, who's in level 3 and she's online right now. I find it helpful to see the light in each person when I start feeling like I'm beginning to get caught up in the other people's 3D. Good suggestion.
Yep, very good suggestion.
And here is from Ferrari. She's also online, I'm requiring a simple tool to slow down the flow of energy when I'm in the higher dimensions. What do you suggest?
There's lots of tools. My suggestion is recognize your grounding, take a breath, and then just simply be in present time. Manage that space. So if that energy begins to take off, it is very manageable when you choose. So you have the capacity to manage that higher energy. One of the things people would call this Kundalini, maybe this is Kundalini, but similarly call it Kundalini. And then there's a place where it really can spin out of control, and it's like a niacin rush through the body that's not pleasant. It's simply when you begin to ground that energy, you have the capacity to ground it and just simply take charge. I'm senior here, and you start to command it from knowing that you can command it. That's one of the things that works. There's, I think, some information on the website about how do you turn down the lower 3 chakras? How do you just get them quiet? Because when those lower 3 chakras become quiet, the ability to sit in present time becomes much more possible, because you're not caught up in the they said and he said and what if, and if I do it wrong, and that rational mind just kind of running out of into itself. So hope that's helpful.
Jim, here is a question from Olivia, who's also online. I'm in level 3 and I feel I am dedicating all of my time toward that, and I've been missing out on the park bench sessions. Is it enough to just be doing level 3 at this time, or would you recommend we really try to make time for Project Park Bench 2?
Nope. Do what is comfortable for you. No more and no less. Simply, and rightfully so, the body of work in Mastering Alchemy is all about reconfiguring yourself and changing a lot of the wiring, readjusting the brain, turning on the eye of Horus, beginning to open up and functioning the chakras differently. That's a big piece of work. So play there. The Park Bench Project is virtually a whole separate course that overlaps and utilizes what you know in the Mastering Alchemy core work and applies it into the Park Bench Project. So it's a whole nother project. And there's no good or bad. Do what's comfortable for you. The advanced webinars that happens once a month, that's an entirely different class program by itself. For those of you who played in it just this last Thursday, that was really remarkable. But it's a added piece of overlapping work that allows you to kind of play in different places. So do what's comfortable, no more, no less.
Jim, this question is from Sitsi, who is in level 1, and she's online right now. Can anyone have a higher vibration that overpowers my efforts? And she's using the example of witchcraft, but generally it would be anyone.
Well, let's talk about your mother, or how about your teacher, or the minister that all know the truth. And you come along and say, help me out, and they say, here's the truth. And as a little kid, quite often, you don't have the capacity to go, no, that's a lot of baloney. Although, many times in that exact moment, you say, I'm not sure about this. So you don't have to go as far as witchcraft. You basically can play in the space where people in the third dimension say, this is how it is, and this is what you'll do. And I'm telling you this is what you need to do. And you go, okay. And you start to conform to other people's demands. Doesn't have to be witchcraft. Witchcraft is a convenient excuse, not invalidating it or saying it's not real at all, but it's a very convenient excuse for those who don't wish you to explore outside of their box. You know, there's a kind of passage somewhere in the Bible that says, don't worship false idols. And we mean that, well, it must be statues. Actually, no, it's really truths of other people. Because as soon as you give up your seniority to somebody else's truth, you are not so much under their control, but you are no longer in command of yourself. It's like tying up your hand and saying, well, you can't use this hand. And then you walk around lesser. Then you can't use this hand, and now you're lesser. And so to a great extent, one of the things about all this Mastering Alchemy work, in real simple terms, if you can create this platform that you function from your own certainty, your own seniority, your own awareness, present time, how do I choose? And you do nothing else, but you can really master that space. The reality is you will master everything else. Because what you're really saying is, I'm that little child that's now going out there to play, to pretend, to make up things, to engage with things, to try them out, to get them all over me and go, oh, that didn't work. Get out from under it without anybody going, boy, you are really bad. There's no bad. It's just like, whoops, that didn't work. You know, our two favorite words are hello and oops. Oops is such a marvelous word. It's like, oops, that didn't work. Total permission. Nobody's condemning you. You're not a bad person. Oops, let me try it another way. You do oops real well when you're by yourself, but when you do something and everybody else, third dimension, is going, how dare you? Why are you so stupid? You didn't really mean to do that. There's no permission. They squash your permission to simply, oops. Oh, I'm okay. I'm going to go try it again another way. And you forget about it. It's not a mistake. It's just forget about it, but you remember it enough that, oh, that doesn't work if I go over there. But when you start being the image of others, no, you can't do this. I said so. That's really where your question, I think, has a lot of focus.
Jim, I have a couple mask questions, so I'm just going to ask Levon's. They both relate to energy and resistance in a person's space. So Levon is asking, can I get through the shift without the requirement of wearing a mask? Do I need to work out feelings of being strongly against wearing one?
No, yep, you can get through it. Simple. You can get through it. Now, there's a choice. And if you're clear about your choice, fine. Whatever the choice is. So what happens is, in that mass question, it's not a matter of being told I can't go to the movies or I can go to the movies and I'm going to dig in my heels and push against. This one has now over 120,000 people in the United States dead because of something that is invisible, undetectable, uncertain. Nobody knows where it comes from. Nobody knows who has it and who doesn't have it. That's simply a risk. If a person says, I'm comfortable accepting that risk for myself, perfect. If there's the other side of it, that's people will jump right in. Here's third dimension. No, what about your responsibility for all that are out there playing? Oh, we've already established that. There is no group consensus for well-being. Third dimension doesn't play in a group consensus. Respect, dignity, love, kindness. Not rules, not truths, not commands, not directions one upon another. Just simply that collective agreement about how do we move towards well-being is not in play right now. So mask, no mask, that's not, I'm making no judgment one way or the other, and I'm not giving any truth here at all. I'm just simply saying to each one of us, how do you choose? And is it a comfortable, responsible choice on your part? Go for it.
Jim, this one is from Christina. Is there increased activity in the sleep space lately? I rarely remember dreams, but I have a great sense there is something important occurring during this time.
There's a lot happening in the sleep space. And the sleep space is a very massive space. It's all that is. And so one of the things is these upper aspects of, we'll call them dimensions and consciousness, because of this reset, are getting closer and closer to consciousness in each of our spaces. And so where, let me use this word loosely, where people have said, well, I have the veils, and the veils don't let me move through or get into a conscious space. Those veils, morphic fields, are being very systematically realigned into an alignment that no longer prevents resistance or prevents passage. So your sleep space is getting, much more available. But see, the sleep space, for the most part, does not speak in language and does not speak in words. So you have all of this consciousness, and then you come back into the physical body and you try to translate that into words. It doesn't work. That's why most people don't remember the sleep space. The closest that you can get to remembering in the sleep space is really this fourth dimensional astral plane, which is the thought plane. It's not physical. Fourth dimension is not physical. Even though your dreams are really real and tangible, they're not physical. They're thoughts. But in that space, there's translation into words and into reference points and I can make sense of it. But beyond that, kind of into the next levels, you are spending a lot of time beginning to align yourself to step this energy down again. This is a place where the relationship with the elementals is having a significant impact. The elementals are beginning to, let's again call them veils or misalignments, limitations to consciousness. They're morphic fields, and the elementals are beginning to align them in a way that light and consciousness can come in. And in the last month, there was something that happened that is absolutely mind-boggling in terms of this: thoughts are electrical, emotions are magnetic. The thought levels coming into the earth, really through the sun, have been wobbly as they begin to pass through the magnetic field. The elementals are realigning the Earth's atmosphere, the air elements, and the morphic fields. There's a lot of morphic fields, misaligning structures inside that atmospheric place. But as these alignments happened, you ever watch lightning and it's just this flash, and then sometimes it dances for what you want to think is almost a second, and you go, wow, that was really amazing. There is a series of registered observations of satellites, one in Brazil that recently happened. Lightning lasted 16 seconds. The lightning bolt went 440 miles and it stayed in existence for 16 seconds. That's like unbelievable. But it's these fields are changing, and the atmosphere is very much an electrical thought realm. It is the emotional body of the earth. It holds thoughts. And so as these misaligned morphic fields are beginning to align, and as you begin to become conscious, or the third dimension becomes conscious, one of the things is all of the thoughts. I'm not okay, and they're bad, and they're good. That's all leaving. Can't take your baggage with you on this journey. But as this atmospheric alignment begins to happen, the consciousness is beginning to be available to you to draw from. That's the positive side of all of the things we're doing. What goes on in consciousness, the ability just to hold your hand out and have the apple appear in your hand, very real, and that's becoming more and more available to each one of us. A lot of that is happening in the sleep state to understand how to do that.
Jim, this one is from Elise. Are the color codes related to the elements or the elementals?
Color codes are tools of creation and applications of creation. So they're related to the elementals just like they're related to you and me for use of creation. But they are not specific to the elementals.
Oh.
That was too short.
That was too short. I wasn't prepared for that. Usually your answers are so long that
it's not the simple question that people ask. It's a long answer that they get.
Here is another question from Sitzi. What is prayer?
That's a great question. Prayer is a hugely powerful, very harmonic vibrational field of consciousness. Incredibly creative, and it is an aspect that belongs to you. It is a tool that you use, whoever the you is. It is for you to create. It's a creative tool. Very potent. It is, a lot of times people misapply prayer, or they pray for other people. What they're saying is, in my image, I want you to be different. Well, in their image, they're having their experience of their game and their experience, no matter good or bad or painful or unpainful. That's their experience. But what praying for other people does is it doesn't necessarily change the other person, but it does create let's call it an atmosphere or an environment or landscape, use those words again, that simply, it's almost as if you create this garden around people to sit in. And that's what prayer does for others. It creates the environment for them to choose. Now, whether they're so much in pain and so much caught up in their experience, they can't even see the garden that you just created. Where prayer gets clumsy is we begin to take responsibility for or authority over others, and prayer short circuits. You can't do something to somebody else. So the prayer just simply short circuits. You feel good because you're sitting in the environment, but prayer is for you. Prayer is a powerful tool of alignment, setting in place the architecture, again, that allows for things of your creation to happen. Very harmonic. we know very little about the application of prayer. But that's going to change somewhat. Those of you playing in park bench, after we do this next coming up exercise with crystallizing love into the physical body, that's a big deal. If you're going to play, this is one to come and play at, particularly. But after that, there'll be a point where somewhere we'll talk about prayer as a creative tool for you to into this landscape, particularly. Hope that is a good enough answer.
Jim, this one is from Annalie. Can we use the rose for the pain on others? Let me say this a different way. Can we use the rose for pain that others are experiencing?
So if the question is, can I fix somebody else? To a great extent, the answer is no. You simply can't fix somebody. If they're not asking, no matter what you want to provide them, they aren't going to change. Now, whether it's a rose or whether it's the prayer, you can't fix somebody else. But what you can do is create, I'm going to use that word environment again, opportunity for people to understand what you do and match your energy and begin to have the same experience that you have. So if you're a healer, quite often you're a reader, you're a clairvoyant. If you're a healer, particularly if you're doing Reiki or hands-on, you're looking at what's going on in somebody's space, and or sound healer, but mostly healer, you basically see what's necessary and then create a vibrational resonance to well-being and provide it maybe into that body for them to absorb if they choose. So a lot of times you'll get a healer will get around a person and the healer is in a really good space. And pretty soon the person has engagement and then they stop feeling pain and they forget all about their problem because they're matching where the healer is. Understanding that as a healer, for a healer, is a great asset. So if you can get them to the point where they take their attention off the pain, and then you can create a vibrational field from your own knowledge, understanding, knowingness, or simply intention, they will begin to more likely match that vibration and heal themselves. But they heal themselves. But you're the catalyst for that healing to happen. So, kind of how that works.
Jim, this one is from Celeste in England. Could you please comment on the Earth's energy at this time? Has it changed because it feels so strong and pure now?
The Earth is going through a huge set of changes. One of the things that he's talked about is these morphic fields in the electromagnetic field in the atmosphere. Being aligned is allowing a lot of the other parts of the shift to happen more comfortably. There are a lot of tensions in the Earth that have been building up and are at snapping points. It's as if they begin to change. Earthquakes, volcanoes are somewhat quiet right now. It's all directly related to the sun, how the sun functions. The sun at the moment is in a very quiet period, so you're not getting lots of sunspots and solar winds and coronal mass ejections and all of those things that instantaneously affect the Earth. And then some of them take 8 minutes to get here, some of them take 3 or 4 days, solar winds, to get here. But what's going on in the sun is the direct kind of overseer right now to what goes on in the Earth. So there's a symbiotic relationship between the planets and the sun that is being driven by this change, this transition, this shift, this reset. The elementals are working very hard to kind of smooth over some of the Earth pieces. Because, see, it's all about electricity and magnetism. And so when you start to get a certain level of electromagnetism engaged, and these solar winds engaged, and some of these sunspots, you get two sunspots on the sun, you get a high and low pressure happening on the Earth simultaneously. And so liquefaction is one of the pieces that or the elementals are paying a lot of attention to, because once you get a vibration that is a sound vibration, it simply destabilizes the molecular structure, and it's called liquefaction. And so all of the solid rock just simply basically goes into not water, but a liquefied state, and it has no stability. I think back in 1964, there was a 9.6 earthquake in Alaska, and a whole town just sunk into the ground. Just simply, it was like the ocean the houses are built on the ocean, gone, almost instantaneously. So that liquefaction point is a place where the elementals are working in the ley lines and stabilizing a lot of the constructs, so that when the electrical field changes, things move, but they don't break. So that's what's going on the Earth right now too, primarily.
Jim, Susan has a question. She's with us today. What does morphic mean?
Oh, good question. So let's say there is a plane of light that goes this way and a plane of light that goes that way. And they're disharmonic. They're not in alignment. They both exist, but there's not a lot of smooth movement through those two places. I'm being really simple. And so it's a field, a vibrational field of consciousness, that when it's in alignment, it basically, it's like a door. It's simply you're trying to go through, and when the door is like this, it doesn't work. But when the door does that, everything flows. And so this is a misalignment of vibrational consciousness, is more the correct answer, I think. Good question.
Okay, let me, hold on, sorry. Okay, this one is from Elsa. I'm a coach. I've taught my students the basic mastering alchemy tools. What else can I do to be of service to them?
So right here with the message of the whole conversation we've been having is, how do you manage you? How do you begin to demonstrate the example of well-being? How do you hold joy? How do you simply engage in communication? And when there's this kind of confrontation, for example, how do you step back and go, wow, this is kind of interesting, isn't it? How could we do it differently? Is there anything, how is it possible that both of those work, but they don't work in this morphic field? You got to somewhat realign it, maybe take it up a level. How do we do it differently so that you get what you want, and you get what you want, and 1 and 1 becomes 3? So it's a place of basically being able to create this fluidity without conflict, whether you're a manager or whether you're a parent or whatever. How do I navigate to where it's like, well, that was interesting, didn't work really well. How do we do it differently? No engagement, no condemnation. So these tools all really, well, there's a lot of tools in mastering out, but this space of who are you? How do you observe, choose, and apply an action that allows for fluidness to occur and everybody to find well-being? Whether you're a teacher or just simply an individual, that's the game. How do I, in present time, recognize what's in front of me, notice what I am interested in, how to deal with it, and then take an action, whether it's step off the train track and enjoy the breeze, or whether it's decide you're going to end your life and go, oh my God, and let the train hit you. It's all about a choice. So,
Jim, this one is from Kellyanne. Are we now all, and she's also with us today, Are we now also developing enhanced senses? My hearing has never been better, and I hear vibrations.
Enhanced sensory ability. That's what's happening to you exactly. In the larger part of the answer is yes. Everybody, you are changing. You are very significantly changing. It's like watching a monitor on the screen, and there is a scene that is changing. It's going from mountains to snow, but it's being done pixel by pixel on the screen. And so all of a sudden you're not sure, but I think something's changing. I'm kind of feeling something's changing. And then pretty soon you find yourself, hiking up the mountain or it's like you ever sit in a car and you just kind of look out the window at a scenery and you turn your head away and you look back, the scenery's completely changed. Or if you really pay attention, you watch the scenery change frame by frame by frame. It was desert, and then it was grasses, and then it got more trees, and then it got mountains. Over that process, that's what's changed. That's what's happening to us right now. We are changing, pixel by pixel, and it's kind of an exciting thing that's going on. But your sensory perceptions, your particularly those who are playing in Mastering Alchemy, with the amplification of the Eye of Horus. The Eye of Horus is not a necklace or a mystery school. If you cut the head in half, straight in half, forward, back, and you opened it up, you would see this Eye of Horus. And it has a lot to do with chakras and a lot to do with the brain, but it has everything to do with your psychic, your spiritual abilities, beginning to function as a knowingness. It's a considerably amplification to your ability to perceive, engage, and know consciousness at a very different level. Pixels are changing. You're moving from here into here.
Jim, I just realized that we are way over the 90 minutes.
We are.
We are. However, we have over 500 people, so do you want to keep going?
Are you getting bored, all of you?
No.
Okay. Yeah, let's do another 10 minutes so everybody can go out and enjoy the day where they are.
Okay. So this one is Elsa Ann. How do we protect ourselves from taking other people's karma and still helping them?
So for those of you playing in Mastering Alchemy, and I'm just going to qualify it there, and it is not limited to Mastering Alchemy. Karma is a concept that exists in the third dimension, purely and simply. Those of you playing in Mastering Alchemy, you simply don't have time to play in karma. And one of the agreements with the Archangelics really clearly on, in fact, it wasn't an agreement, they just said, you don't have karma anymore. You don't have time to play the game of karma. So if you think about it, what is karma? You're playing out this game, and the belief is, well, I punched you in the nose the last time, so you get to punch me in the nose this thing. It's, I do bad things, and because. There is no because in this case. So as you begin to get into present time, as you begin to center your head, grounding on my side of the rose, and start to have an awareness of tools, and you begin to be aware of one really specific thing, and that is time is not linear for where you're now playing. And the minute you step into present time, the past changes, and the rules of the past change. And so if you haven't heard this, just hear this first before you just judge it or think about it. And so I'm in present time, and when I was 12 years old, I told somebody, a whole group of people, a joke, and they laughed at me. They didn't laugh with me. And I was embarrassed. And so I'm never going to tell a joke again. Now, at 12 years old, I had an experience. I played a game. And it didn't go the way I thought it would. And I had a thought, I'm embarrassed. That was my thought. And simultaneously, an emotion connected to my thought that didn't feel very good. In third dimension, somebody says, why don't you tell jokes, and you sit in third dimension and you go, oh no, I don't tell jokes. And all you're doing is remembering the 12-year-old experience and then having the emotion, I'm not okay. But in present time, if we said, why don't you tell jokes? And in present time, you say, oh, because I had an experience when I was 12 years old. So the first part of that is, that's different, is your past becomes simply information without an attached emotion. I was at 12 years old, I told a joke, it didn't work, people laughed at me. If you allow the emotion to come into play, the embarrassment, then in present time, I'm embarrassed. Is that emotion useful to you today? And does it have anything to do with your 12-year-old experience? No. It's just, if X, then Y. But if you can recognize, I'm going to be aware of the experience as information, and then simply ask the question, does this serve me? And the answer is no. With the various tools, fourth and sixth ray, eighth ray, just the rose, I don't need to carry this anymore, explode it in a rose, and not connect the emotion. That whole experience in your past goes away. Real simple. So what if it was guilt? What if it was blame? What if it was many of those words we walk around with? I'm a victim because. Does that really serve you? No. And so if you can change that, bring that into present time and begin to clear it out, you start to change the frame of reference that is really well founded in the concept of karma. Oh, because I did this when I was a kid, I deserve this now as punishment. Is that a useful concept? Is that really a concept you want to continue to hold into your awareness? If the answer is no, particularly right here, because you're working on certain and capable and powerful and gracious and commanding your presence, karma, embarrassment, guilt, victim, they have zero value in your state of being. Who told you about karma? Well, somebody way back then. Do you know who they are? Does it play out? Does it make any sense to you really? Is it something you want to carry around? The minute you can stay in present time and recognize history, but not necessarily something that has value to me, and I'm not locking it into a state of electromagnetics of, oh no, you don't understand how bad I am. I deserve all these bad things. No, you don't. Get over it. That was funny. Put in a rose, blow it up, but recognize most of what happened in your past has really very little value to you right now. And in Mastering Alchemy, that's a fundamental awareness that starts to free up an awful lot of baggage that has no value.
Jim, this one is from Melinda, who's with us today online too. Are the atom, Kadman, and the light body the same thing?
No. So the atom Kadman body is a much fuller configuration of Christ consciousness that plays out in, let's say, 12 dimensions. That's not exactly right, but 12 dimensions. The light body is a configuration. Think of the light body as, you have a respiratory system, a circulatory system, a skeletal system. The light body is a system, and it's a system that allows the engagement of the parts of you that have been disconnected. A large part of your mental emotion. So first, your mental and emotional bodies were never meant to be two bodies. They were one. You have a thought and an emotion, feeling, or sensation, depending on how you frame it. There's 3 levels to that, and mostly we play in one. So there's second and third level. There's the causal body, the oversoul, the Christed oversoul. All of that is you. It's how you function. These are systems of you, but they're not connected. They've been disconnected, fall of consciousness. The light body basically allows the integration of all those bodies with the physical body in a manner that allows it to connect. But here again, you can't take your baggage with you. So if you are fixated on I'm a victim and I'm not okay and I'm afraid, and there was a lot of questions that related to the word struggle. Struggle. Struggle is a choice. I'm struggling. Take the word out of your vocabulary and redefine it into, okay, I'm having a challenge. A challenge doesn't have the same intensity as struggle. Step it down to the point where it's like, all right, this is kind of irritating me. All right, this isn't really working for me. That's a whole lot different than I hate this, or I'm really angry, or I'm struggling. Not a lot of success in those words. Step into a place where you can manage it. But in this context, these things are all changing.
Jim, let's let this be our last question. This is from Carrie, who's online. Is it necessary to go through a long, complex course like Mastering Alchemy in order to make the shift into the 5D?
Nope, not at all. You can stay in 3D. You can play in between the places of well-being and holding your hand out and creating the apple in it. That's all out here for you to play in, 5D, multi-dimension, and 3D. All that Mastering Alchemy is a journey. It's not a truth. It's not a necessity. It's not required. Because if what we're saying is accurate, where all of those that are playing in Mastering Alchemy really are beginning to hold a vibrational field of light, opportunity, possibility, and then add that into the Park Bench Project, creating a realm of consciousness, an architecture, a landscape, an environment for well-being and conscious choice to be created. That's the templates that a lot of people came here to create. I came here to make this difference, and a lot of other differences, but this difference. That's what's going on in Mastering Alchemy as a focus. It's a journey. It's your personal journey. It's the ability to, on this journey, engage with the elementals and uplift that fallen part of the earth back into its fully Christed state of consciousness, and hold the door open for all others, human and many other species throughout all that is kind of trapped in the third dimensional game, so they can simply step into the same landscaping. So no requirement at all. It's a journey with a lot of tools and information to begin to consider, is this how I operate? And then take another step, more tools, more opportunity, more awareness, more conscious considerations. Or you can, somewhere along between here and there, the door open fifth dimension, there will be many in the third dimension that will simply step into this architecture. Will they know how they did it? Will they have been intentional to do it in a manner of speaking? No. They're just going to get tired of the game and say, I need something different. And all of a sudden, they get a piece of junk mail in the mailbox that says, hey, over here, there's, a new flower that's been made available, and they wander over there and they stay. They don't know anything about Mastering Alchemy. They don't know anything about the journey. They know a lot about the misery, pain, and struggle in the third dimension. So when somebody steps into this space, is it required? Absolutely not. I said this in the last one. I sit here and I say all these things. Please don't believe me. Please don't give your seniority up to me. Don't go, oh, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing from his point of view, which may not be your point of view. So choose the action you wish by observing what is being presented in front of you, but choose for yourself how you wish to experience yourself. I can say that many people now pass through Mastering Alchemy, and their ability to have a sense of their own seniority, an awareness of what's going on in front of them. Do they still have things going on? Yeah. Are they perfect? No. No, really, no. But do they have a sense of commanding their presence and choosing. Yes. So with that, let's come to a stopping place. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for the questions. We're really willing to continue to ask questions. Those of you who are playing in Park Bench, let me just, in fact, we're going to send you out the last Park Bench, or at least draw your attention to it again. I'm going to send you a video kind of explaining what we're going to do so that you just don't find yourself in the middle of it and you can participate more fully. But this one is going to be very interesting, very exceptional opportunity being made available. So with that said, go off, have yourself a lovely day wherever you are. I appreciate you. Blessings.